Hello, everybody, and welcome to Something to Talk About Live. My name is Liz Owen. I'm the Director of Communications at PFLAG National, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. We're about to get into the show, but it is August 13th, and I would be remiss as a mom not to wish a happy birthday to my 15-year-old twins, Molly and Sam. And now I'm going to turn it over to my good friend and colleague, Jean Marie Nevada.
Hey, Liz. Happy birthday, Molly Sam. Big day, big day. Well, we are going to have a really good show here today because we're going to get to tell you a little bit more about PFLAG and PFLAG's interns and what they have been up to. So this week we are talking about what happened to all of the interns this summer. It's estimated that there are about 20,000 students who come to DC every year to be interns in lots of nonprofits and government and private sector corporations. We actually have 4 of those interns here to talk about what their summer with PFLAG, albeit virtually, actually was. So with that, I would love to introduce Andy, Sam, Katie, and Adam. Hello. I think we do have everybody. We're in one piece. No one died yet. Okay, so this is what I would love to do. Starting, we can go again in the order: Andy, Sam, Katie, and Adam. Could you each do a quick introduction? Tell everybody your name, what school you're going to, your year, and what you are studying.
All right, I'll start off. My name's Andy. I'm a rising junior at UC Berkeley, and I'm studying anthropology, media studies, and global poverty, and my pronouns are he, him.
Sam?
My name is Sam. I am from Abington, Pennsylvania. I go to Smith College in Western Massachusetts, where I study government and sociology, and my pronouns are they, them.
Excellent. Katie?
Hey there, my name is Katie. I am a rising senior at the University of St. Andrews, where I study modern history, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them.
Excellent. And Adam?
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam. I am a rising senior at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. I'm studying public policy and political science. My pronouns are he, him.
Excellent. So for those of you who are joining us online, welcome again. We are always happy to see everybody participating. This week's article, if you are interested in picking it up, actually, it was published in the beginning of the summer in dcist, and the title was "An Army of Interns Usually Helps Keep DC Running During the Summer, but Not This Year." And that article is available at straightforequality.org/discussion series. So I want to get into the first question. And again, we're going to use that same order again. And, you know, we wrote the questions obviously in a more general sense, but every single one of you had this experience of having these DC-based internships that ostensibly everyone was pretty much looking forward to, that didn't pan out quite the way you expected. So I would like to talk about that. So what do you think you missed since you couldn't get into DC? But what do you think that maybe you gained on the other side because it was a virtual experience, if anything? Because I mean, it definitely was probably a big disappointment to not get to do that time in DC. So Andy, why don't we start with you?
Well, I think first and foremost, when I heard that it was online, I was honestly relieved because I know that so many other of my friends, their internships were just completely canceled. So the fact that PFLAG was able to go online was a huge relief. But obviously, as looking forward to working in DC, you know, the intern experience in DC is so spectacular from what I hear. And, you know, DC Pride, New York Pride, but also I was just really bummed that I wasn't going to be able to really make those relationships with the other staffers and interns. But at the same time, there's so many positives that have come out of it. You know, like I've been able to be on so many interesting and informative calls, whether it's with Angelica Ross, India Moore, Vanita Gupta, just the list goes on. And so I honestly am not sure if I'd be having those opportunities had the internship not been online.
And a lot of doors open. It's interesting how some doors closed. It seems like other strange ones kind of opened as people became more connected in these different kinds of ways. Sam, talk about your experience.
So I was actually supposed to be living with my girlfriend in DC this summer. So sadly, I'm at home in Philadelphia. She is at home in Knoxville, so we haven't gotten to see each other this whole thing, which, yeah, not ideal. But being at home, this is the only time that my stepbrother and I have ever been in the same place at the same time for an extended period of time. So we've gone from kind of being acquaintances to really being siblings. So that has been a really great part of being an intern from home this summer. You know, I've gotten to watch him grow both as a person and also he's now yay tall. in terms of what I've gained from my virtual interning experience, I have thought about how much I need to really think about the ways that people's personal lives impact what they do. So, if I'm complaining about having to be up for work at 9 a.m., well, okay, actually 3 of the people on this call have to be up at 6 a.m. in order to be on those same calls. So it's just a lot of putting things into perspective and making sure that everyone is heard and taken care of.
Excellent, excellent. Katie, talk to us about your experience. What went right, and what kind of maybe was a disappointment, and what did you find during the summer?
Absolutely. So I was supposed to be in DC with my good friend who also had an internship there. And I was super excited to explore the city and see if I wanted to call it home after college. And I also had a job lined up for weekends and for nights at a store in the area. COVID-19 brought me back home to Jacksonville, Florida, but I have grown so close with my family. And from my virtual internship experience, I've gained lessons of accountability and teamwork. Since there's no one, over your shoulder, making sure you're working, you have to learn to be a part of a team and to motivate yourself and recognize that you're part of this really great program.
That's really interesting. As somebody who's worked from home for years, it's very strange to not really have anybody kind of watching from time to time. You realize you kind of have to be your own boss. And finally, Adam, talk to us about your experience.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in California, but my family moved to Nevada relatively recently. And so I had a summer internship lined up with Senator Cortez Masto from Nevada. And so I had that opportunity pushed to next summer. And so while I was really thankful that had moved to next summer, I was a little bit worried because I was looking for new opportunities. And PFLAG was right there to step in and help me. The virtual internship was way, way more than I expected. It was a great community with also the interns, but also a PFLAG staff that truly cared about our growth and our development. So I think I gained a ton looking back. I think the virtual internship I'm sorry.
No, please keep going. I'm so sorry.
Okay. The virtual internship experience, I was thinking it would be very isolating, very alone, very kind of tiring. And instead, I think that those were challenges to overcome, but there was so much to gain as well. These collaborative projects where we had our input, I think that it was a great learning opportunity because in the future, we may be in a position to work virtually, for a while. And so these opportunities to learn and grow this summer could really transform into some lifelong lessons.
Thank you. And I have to say, for everyone who's watching, this summer we were so lucky. I can't tell you how many times a project would come up and we need to write or research or get feedback. And with confidence, every single time the phrase, "we should talk to the interns about that," came up, we all kind of had this sigh of relief. So you were all really incredible. And it was so much fun to actually see you, even though we didn't really get to see you that much, although we ended up on a lot of video calls. So I want to talk about the way this has had an impact on some people in different ways. So, you all had very different experiences coming into this. You've had different experiences during the course of the internship, but you've also been talking to some of your friends who also were having internship or maybe canceled internship experiences. So again, we'll do the same order, just the way we make sure we all get in here. But do you think that the cancellation or the postponement of internships impacted some students more than others? And why do you think this is? And do you have any examples of this from anybody that you've spoken to? And Andy, we'll start again with you.
I think it absolutely does. As the article mentions, some of these internships are student sources of income. And so when they're canceled, then they're kind of trying to figure out frantically what they can do. And also at our level, it's hard to get a job more than being, like in food service or those type of jobs. So it's also when those are down during the pandemic, then it makes it especially hard. And I think it's also sometimes students themselves have to cancel their internships, not just the companies, not just the organizations, because when you have other family members where they can't work, I've had friends if their parents are undocumented, then they have to have the income for the entire family. And so they've had to quit their internships that were unpaid and find a job that can help their family. So luckily, I've been extremely fortunate to be able to afford this internship, but I know for so many others, it's way more difficult.
And I think that's a really interesting point that a lot of people don't even consider about sort of what the impact is on students who then find themselves in the role essentially of breadwinners in some cases for families, depending on the situation. Sam, talk to me about this one. What do you think on this question?
So for a lot of it, I've been thinking about people who are even more rural than I am. Like, I'm half an hour outside of a major metropolitan area, but my power's been going out pretty much most times we have a storm, and I can't get on a lot of the conference calls because I simply don't have good cell reception at my house. So I'm thinking about all of the people who started with little or no access, and then, what if they had interviewed where they thought they could be there in person, they thought they could get housing, but then, what would an organization say if they're like, you're so qualified, but you don't have a laptop or you don't have Wi-Fi? The organization going to send them a laptop, or are they going to say, I'm sorry, I can't do it? So I've been thinking a lot about that and how that makes things really difficult.
And I think that's a really interesting point. Sometimes it's not even the hardware question, it's even getting access question. And especially we know that a lot of people who don't have access rely on things like libraries, which have also been closed this entire summer. And so it's really put people at a huge disadvantage. Katie, what's your perspective on this one?
I completely agree with everyone's points so far. And additionally, I think it's also especially impacted LGBTQ plus people from unfortunately non-affirming environments or households who are looking forward to having a source of income to either move or having an outlet this summer to be themselves with their internships or work study.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as we start to talk about some of those extra layers of challenge, I think that it becomes really a big issue for somebody. And finally, Adam.
Thank you. Well, I think that in a lot of ways, this discussion about paid internships is really very, very valuable. For me, I have course credit. And so for many people who are in university or in school, they have that option. They don't have to take a course that they would otherwise have to take, and they would receive some kind of credit instead. And so for people who can't obtain that kind of credit, who or to Sam's point, have a poor internet connectivity or poor connection or don't have many of those resources, it can be really, really challenging. And so just putting yourself in that kind of headspace and keeping those people in mind is so important.
Yeah. And I think what you just mentioned actually leads into our third question, which was about paid internships. So admittedly, I went to college in the dark ages 800 years ago. But even 800 years ago, there was still the debate about paid and unpaid internships. And for me, it was actually a big issue because everything that I wanted was unpaid, and I was somebody who had to work. So doors ended up closing for me. And yet there is this really big movement, this really big push towards the idea of paying interns. And the article, for everybody who might be reading that, actually mentions the Pay Our Interns campaign, which aimed, I believe, to get 500 interns this summer paid with a $2,000 to $3,000 stipend. So I want to hear from all of you. We're going to again do the round, just like we have been doing. So what do you think of this campaign? Had you heard about it? What does it mean to you as people who have just gone through internships and literally had this experience? And once again, Andy, we'll kick off that question with you.
So I've not actually heard of the campaign before, but I think it's a great idea. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. As far as being paid, I was privileged enough to have a scholarship for this internship, but in all honesty, I think the debate is super complicated and it's really sticky when you consider both sides, because as we know, unpaid internships do kind of perpetuate that unequal access to job opportunities. But at the same time, when you consider, well, especially in the case of nonprofits who are serving marginalized communities, when they're doing all that they can with their funds to help serve these communities, it is difficult to also push them to pay interns when we're all kind of in the same boat trying to help as much as we can. So I think it's hard for me to take a stance because I do see both sides, but I'm really glad that the campaign exists because it does do a lot to help interns.
And I think that's interesting that it does get kind of complicated depending on the kind of organization that you're talking about and the resources that they start with. I mean, especially as you start thinking about really small organizations, it becomes a real challenge for them. And yet we recognize that recognizing and acknowledging and supporting the labor that's happening can be really important. So Sam, where are you on this one?
So I am in a place where I go to an incredibly well-endowed college, which means that they have an internship program where they can provide a stipend to every student to take an unpaid internship. So I'm lucky enough that even though I'm not being paid by PFLAG to do this work, I am being paid by my college to say, hey, we really appreciate your labor. And I actually did the math at Pennsylvania minimum wage. That stipend would not be the same amount with the amount that I'm working for PFLAG. So it's a really tricky issue. I mean, our minimum wage is really low. So do I take the low pay or technically no pay, or do I go out and get a job at a supermarket and potentially risk my health and my family's health? Because especially the summer, you know, if you can stay inside, yes, you should be doing that. But also I understand that money often doesn't come when you're sitting inside. So it's been a really tough issue. And I'm really glad that the campaign to pay our interns is taking off in DC. And I just really hope that other people in both inside and outside the federal government will follow suit.
Yeah. And, you know, and I think you brought up a really big point there, which is with COVID and what's happening, and just leaving your house can in fact pose a risk. That kind of added a whole different wrinkle to this, even in terms of getting employment this summer, never mind even just thinking about your internships. So thank you for mentioning that. Katie, where are you on this one?
I completely agree with Sam and Andy. I think it's an absolutely great campaign to have to pay our interns. I had heard of it before, just very briefly, and I think they do absolutely amazing work to ensure that all students have equal access to be able to take internships and work study that could be beneficial to their career.
Excellent. And Adam, never least, just happens to be in order last. Sorry.
No worries. So for me, I was never actually in the market for a paid internship because of that course credit. So my university won't allow me to take a paid internship with course credit. So with that frame of mind, I was in the market for every internship there is. And so when I had the senatorial one, I was already ready to go. And then when things changed, I had to backtrack and change. But the lack of pay, in this case, from the PFLAG internship, I had no problem with, because it was such an incredible opportunity, so many more ways that I did not expect. And so although I wasn't being paid, I wasn't eligible to be paid. So I don't feel bad one bit.
Well, thank you. I know that we have a bunch of questions, but I just want to ask, I have to ask the question because you were at PFLAG. Can each of you tell people about something that you worked on this summer that you were really excited about? Because you covered so many projects. I know that you were in some of the projects I was on, but you touched so many things. So if we do one quick round, and then I promise we're going to go to our viewer questions. So again, starting with Andy.
I mean, it's hard to choose one because there is just so much going on all the time. I think one project that I can't speak a ton on because it has not officially launched, but basically the campaign that is in the works for the Equality Act, I think working on that campaign, while I can't give the details, it's been really exciting to know, just the directors, like there's so much room and flexibility that I didn't realize that I had. So I'd, wake up and be like, oh, can't wait to work on the campaign, just knowing all the possibilities that could come out of it. But I think also generally speaking, in projects in general, PFLAG has just been a lot better than I was expecting. Not that I was expecting it to be bad, but I think that being virtual, it's, really don't know what's coming. So I think, although I mentioned I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to form the relationships with the other staffers and directors and everyone who I'm working with, I think I feel oddly very close to all of y'all. I don't know. I think it's, it's like, even though I've never met you in person, it's like fun, like waking up and, texting Katie, making a joke to Sam, being able to meet Adam in person was really exciting. So I think that also goes to speak just to what PFLAG stands for, right? I mean, it's so oriented around families and friends, and somehow even being completely virtual starting and ending, I felt those close relationships happen. So it's really nice to have that through this internship.
Thank you. And I know the campaign you're talking about, and we are also excited. Sam, what did you really love this summer?
So I had the opportunity to do a lot of blogging. It's been really great because I would just kind of come in and say, hey, I feel really strongly about this. And Diego and Liz would be like, all right, go for it. And I love that. Part of the point earlier that I would motivate myself was like, I really want to talk about this. I really want people to know. So I've had 3 different things published this summer and a bunch more on the way, which I'll continue working with PFLAG even after I'm gone. And I've also had the opportunity to do a lot of the drafting of PFLAG's up and coming non-binary resource doc, which I'm really, really excited about because it's really important to me that a document for non-binary people is written by non-binary people. So whenever that comes out to all the non-binary people watching, this one was for you.
And for the people who want to support them too, which I'm so excited about that document too. So thank you. Katie, what did you work on that you were really happy and excited about?
It's so hard to pick just one, but I think my favorite that we worked on was the glossary. We worked on updating PFLAG's glossary, and it was so wonderful not only to update that, but also to get to know everyone, because I feel like that's where we got to know each other best, was working with each other on the glossary. And it was just so lovely, and you're also amazing. So it was my favorite part for sure.
We always enjoy every summer the updates that we get because everybody brings such different perspectives in, which is so important. And we really appreciate that. Adam, talk to us about your projects.
So I can't choose one, so I'll do just 2 very brief ones. One of them was with Andy. We did the Get Out the Vote campaign, which was just a very great way to have a PowerPoint put together for PFLAG chapters in states that are considered battlegrounds, the one where we need to put our efforts the most. And creating those documents, it was a little bit grueling, not gonna lie, but the impact of that work is so important because then someone who may have never voted before, they see that content from PFLAG and they're inspired to go forward, have their voice heard. And that to me was very important. And then second of all, I have a blog. I think it's just on the cusp of being published online, but it's about my faith journey with my sexual orientation, how my faith life changed. And I hope that blog, when published and when put out there, can really help people who are kind of in the ringer, who are in that midst of discussion, debate with themselves internally, hear that and know where to go going forward.
Thank you. And I have to say the Get Out the Vote piece that everybody was working on, I saw the decks after they were done. I was doing some proofreading and going through the 12 in sequence was quite an experience. It stresses you out a lot about voting, but it made me realize how important that work was because there is such a patchwork of laws, and to have that research and to have had this group work on that and contribute that, it was really, really important. So with that, I am going to bring Liz back because I have seen questions popping up and I know she has some stuff for us.
We do. So I want to acknowledge a question that was asked here, and we're gonna answer it sort of quickly because it's a kind of deep question, but I also don't want to ignore it because it really goes to the last question that you had here. Lauren Ramos asked 2 questions. The first one was whether PFLAG National pays its interns, and I think from the conversation it's clear that as of now we don't. And the follow-up question about what we do to ensure that LGBTQ+ students of color and those from low-income backgrounds are able to work with PFLAG. So I just really want to acknowledge the importance of this question and how this impacts our role in racial and economic justice work, to also share that we are actually in the process of shifting from an unpaid to a paid model. Our internships are open to everyone, but we also understand that there are financial circumstances that might not make an unpaid internship viable for students of color, students from low-income backgrounds, et cetera. So I really didn't want to ignore this question, and I'm sorry it took so long for us to get to it, Lauren. I really just wanted to actually respond to it myself as one of the directors here at PFLAG. And you can find me on the website, lowen@pflag.org. And if you want to talk about it more, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd really be happy to talk to you more about this issue because it is very important to the work that we're doing at PFLAG National. So thank you for this question. So we had a question that is sort of last minute, but I love it. Charity Chandler here is wondering whether your internship has changed or influenced what you want to do as a career. I'm going to guess that PowerPoint decks and glossary writing might be new paths for you. I will say that the glossary project is something we have our interns work on every summer because youth lead on language. And so they drive the changes and shifts in language. And it's something we do every year, and we sit with it as a staff and go through every single change and every single word, and inevitably everything gets updated. It's pretty cool. So, so what's everybody going to do for a career after this life-changing experience? Sam?
So I've had this idea for a while that my goal in life is to change the government, and I've been trying to figure out whether that would be most effective done from the inside or the outside. So last summer I worked for my Pennsylvania representative, my Pennsylvania senator, and this summer I was like, I'm not going into the government. I'm going to go change policy potentially from the outside. So I came in thinking government, government, government. And now the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, boy, do I just want to talk to people and educate them. So now I'm actually thinking about whether or not I would potentially be reconsidering focusing on government and focusing more on community action and activism and going really into education.
Very cool. Andy?
I think one thing that sticks out to me looking back on my experience with PFLAG is just how to approach allyship. I think just growing up in Orange County, Newport Beach specifically, it's a very different area compared to Berkeley, stereotypically very conservative on one side and very liberal on the other. So I think PFLAG kind of strikes that position exactly of meeting in the middle and how to approach all the different levels of allyship. So I think understanding that more, and specifically understanding that through digital advertising or just digital word communication, social media, that's been really interesting to just understand how that all works. So I think looking forward, one thing I've been interested in is similar to Sam, but more on the corporate side. So possibly going into corporate social responsibility and really making sure that corporations are understanding the importance of respecting not just LGBTQ plus identifying employees and workers, but also all their marginalized groups. And I know I've heard that's a very difficult job to do, but PFLAG has shown that I think it is very possible.
Best job in the whole world. Best job in the whole world. Do it.
Our workplace work. So she lives in that world and thrives there. So, Katie?
I completely agree with Sam. This internship has taught me how important education is. Same with Andy, how important allyship is. And I think from this internship, I've been inspired. I want to become an educator and a historian, specifically focusing on LGBTQ plus history.
Thank you so much. Jean Marie's like, I'll help.
I'm so happy. This is like the best day ever. The future is totally secure thanks to the intern class.
And we have 3 minutes left. So Adam.
I won't take all three by any means, but what I was going to say was that I'm going to kind of cheat here and change the question. I don't want to change it too much. But I now know what a good workplace looks like. Like it is online, of course, but I think that the staff at PFLAG helped me see the importance of leading from the front and making sure that we're included. And the staff care so much here. I can't give PFLAG enough credit. From day one, they included us in the meetings, asking us what we were doing. And on day one, I was like, nothing yet. And someone said, well, here you go, like, welcome. And that was such a good, wholesome welcome to this community. And now I know, I'm not sure if it has changed my career. It's a little bit dubious in my mind, but what it has done is reminded me of what a good, functional, inclusive workplace looks like.
Liz is going to cry. Liz is about to cry.
So I'm just going to take this question out here. So we have about a minute left. So I'm going to let Jean Marie wrap things up.
Excellent. Well, I thank you, Liz, Andy, Adam, Katie, Sam. Thank you so much. You were an incredible class, and we are going to really, really miss you. And we may just keep emailing you and asking you to do things, or maybe that's just me. It'll just be me. But thank you so much. You are all incredible. You are always welcome back at PFLAG, and we're going to be really excited to see everything that you're doing. You made us very proud, and I'm sure you're going to continue making us very proud. So thank you all. And we are wishing you a really, really great school year, no matter how that school year actually looks and where it actually is happening. But we are always here for you, and thank you for everything that you did. So that gets us to the end of today's show. We always end the same way with the advice from the doctor to run fast, laugh hard, and most of all, be kind. And as we remind everybody, wear your masks, because that's what normal, sane, rational, good, caring for other people do. We will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, for another Something to Talk About. Please visit us at pflag.org to learn more about our work and how you can get support and connect with your local chapter. My name is Jean Marie Navetta, and I am looking forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great week, everybody.